Hey everybody, what's going on? And we are back in Hyrule, right where we left off from Breath of the Wild, right? We introduced these guys back in the day, right? All of these sun-named people. Yeah, we have to realize this is a fantasy. What a beautiful timeline. Something tells me we have gone astray. What a nice idea that, we were the reason that they got married and that whole town got together. What a nice little fantasy we created. But, here we are in Tears of the Kingdom, where only the main quest seems to have been completed. See from the memories we got, we are dealing with multiple timelines here. And the most notable, at least for me, was
what?
Seeing the effect this had on
Oh, dear.
Clearly we can see the hands theme already starting. Zelda has the secret stone in her hand. Queen Sophie touched her gently with her hand, and
Where am I?
she doesn't know where she is.
As
The
I
truth
thought,
is, the secret stone...
this is not the world I know.
This is not the world we
A time
know.
so far back in the past, it's become legend. So it's true. This is really the era of Hyrule's founding?
Her stone has
Your presence here
transported
is just as
her
strange
to
to
the
us,
past.
Zelda. But if you, like Sonia, have a secret stone and are able to manipulate time, then your story makes sense.
So, Zelda's somewhere in the past, in Link's present, which we know now as being somewhere over top of us in dragon form. But until we can rekindle our working relationship, we do need to get some things out of the way first, so we will be going into the depths as we continue the second playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom, and ultimately we're going to go and get the travel medallion today so that we can actually start having fun. And to do that, we'll need to get Autobuild, Hateno Village, the sensor, and then finally the travel medallion. And these things will ritualize our play. So we just got auto build by venturing down here into the depths. Our first step into the logistics hell that is Tears of the Kingdom. We will be optimizing building with auto build. Our overall goal is to have things as easily accessible as possible, free or cheap as possible, and to minimize running around, basically. So we've mapped out the locations of some of the resources we want to get. And we'll be placing the medallion in the best spot, in my opinion, for the first travel medallion. The goal is to make it more fun. This has become a bit of a tedious Hyrule with now 3 levels of sky and depths. So the bigger map and having different resources, as I mentioned in my previous video, of not having durian on the map, it just becomes more tedious to get overpowered in terms of hearts and stamina. And on top of that, we have this magical Zonai element and gloom. So there are more factors to consider here, making this more of a logistical nightmare than before, meaning that it's a little less fun until we get to a point where we can actually start playing the game. So, unfortunately, we just need to go through some of the more tedious setup aspects and quests, and through this process, we've completed the first dungeon in Hateno Village and gotten Autobuild.
Okay.
Our next step here is to upgrade the Purah pad. And to do that, we need to get Robbie out of here so they can go work on the technology. Now, clearly we have a bit of a battle between some kind of supernatural power, magical properties going on with the Zonai devices, as well as the realism factor of technology, as well as the physical realism of the space, dealing with actual physics properties. This kind of magical realism doesn't disappoint. It plays with the fate versus destiny. It questions what could happen if magic existed in our world, and it makes it... Alright, once we've made it to the Hateno Ancient Tech Lab, Robbie will add the sensor that allows us to identify shrines of light nearby, which will eventually work on improving further. Our next step will be to get the travel medallion prototype. And this will set in place the resource gathering ritual and supply chain logistics to be less tedious overall, just giving us better access to Big Hearty Radishes. Any attempt to get back to the golden timeline, basically, the one in which we are not in the fallen timeline, which begs to question, what is the reason we are here? So once you've made it up here, you can just find a prototype in a small chest right there. Okay. So now I'm going to place my travel medallion in the location that I demonstrated in my last video, where to get Big Hearty Radishes. This is a bit of a challenge to get up to, so I'm going to actually relay my medallion to make it a little bit easier to get up there.
Huh? Huh? Oh.
This guy, Robbie. Guy. Girl? I don't know. Okay, so we've advanced a lot of things at this point. We've got an auto build. We got the sensor. We got the travel medallion. And here we are. And I just placed the travel medallion in my favorite spot that allows you to get a big hearty radish as well as a hearty radish, many fairies, golden apples, and plenty of other good resources. I feel like we're finally at a point where we can, you know, enjoy the game, figure out what's going on. You know, I feel like at this point I've got my ritual going. I've got my farming going with Uma, which, if you didn't watch my previous video on how to farm big hearty radishes continuously, or anything else if you prefer, go watch my last video on how to cook the best hearty meals. R.I.P. Durian. I love cooking in Hyrule. It's so much fun. You know, I feel like I've got a good meal system of having hearts, stamina, gloom, attack, good meals for this game that pretty much cover the bases once the hearty meals have been figured out. So now I just get to explore the depths a little bit. I've found 160 pose, which I will turn in for this Tunic of the Depths, giving me gloom resistance. This, in addition to the Sundelion meals we cooked earlier in the previous video, or earlier in this video, should be sufficient to begin to explore the depths. The main points here being Zonaite is the most precious resource in the game. This resource holds some kind of magical power that you can activate that allows you to conjure anything. When combined with Autobuild, you can recreate videos. You can recreate vehicles from scratch. And at this point, our biggest hindrance is just energy, magic bar power, and a good effort at this point next for me is probably to just keep increasing the capacity of that magic bar. I didn't even realize this was a thing the first time I played through, until about halfway through when I was watching YouTube videos. So if you're alone out there and you don't know where to go or what to do or what you can do, You can increase your energy wells by turning Zonaite into energy wells. Yeah, collecting Zonite, going to crystallized charges, and into energy wells. Now, as you can see, now that we're a bit more prepared and having fun in this game, we can explore the depths sufficiently, even with only a couple of hearts. We can begin to get more durable weapons. We can mine Zonite with intention. I mean, the first time playing through, I was just wandering around. No idea. And, you know, you don't need to kill any monsters in this game other than Venom if you don't want to. You can always light up a lightroot and they'll conveniently run the other way. And if you ever need arrows, wooden boxes are code for arrows. Never buy them again on any level that you are on, surface, depths, or sky. There are always boxes around. A convenient way to get arrows throughout the game at any point. One of my favorite resources to gather in the depths to make killing monsters more logistically optimized is collecting muddle buds. These muddle buds grow under trees in the depths that have a spiraling top, usually. Sometimes they're found around other items. I'd recommend marking them on your map if you remember, because it's always a great resource to have on hand. But now that we've started playing the game a bit more and left enough time to leave spoilers unspoiled for the story, I think at this point it's time to spoil some ideas around the story. For example, Tarrey Town looks a bit different now. Who did this? You know, it's only been a few years later, and Ronson is still here, and there's a construction company from President Hudson. But which timeline are we on? Because didn't we introduce these two? You know, this begs to question, where is my house? And again, if we're thinking about which timeline we're on, the previous version of this game had two options. You could buy this house, or you could kill Ganondorf and save Hyrule. It seems like this version of this timeline, somehow Zelda has gotten this house, which means, you know, since there aren't any weapon mounts anywhere, or really any signs of Link or Link's existence, this is not Link's house, and therefore Link in this timeline has not met Hudson. He did not introduce Ronson to Hudson, and that's why they don't remember him. They must have met some other way. Once Zelda came back, she bought the house from Hudson, and he ended up going up to Tarrey Town later. And that's how Kilton ends up there instead of someone with a son at the end. He's got a ton at the end, so maybe he'll change it to Kiltson. Well, I didn't mean to do that, but here we are under the entrance to Tarrey Town in the depths, and I've got some gloom defending pants on and willing to sacrifice some hearts on the way just to see what's inside here. And my first reaction is that there are a lot of Poes around. And Poes are some kind of lost souls. So clearly the Zonai were down here, and that might explain why the prayer statue was there. Somehow Hudson made it over here on his own accord, I would say. This is where he seemed to want to go after that house selling situation. So it seems like that was destined to happen regardless whether or not Link intervened. And I think this is another theme, maybe from the developers, the theme of fate versus destiny. We see a lot of tapestries on the wall showing things literally in stone, and you know, it shows the end of Hyrule being wiped out by the Demon King. But, well, we don't see it first, but what has been there all the time is this tapestry that shows Zelda was sent back in time at the exact moment that the Demon King returned. Rauru's secret stone was given to her, and her power of time allowed her to transport back to the exact time she needed to transport back to in order to restore the Master Sword. But what is Hudson doing? This is like, well, we are clearly in the Fallen timeline that has Hudson sort of taking over Hyrule with his face everywhere. And it's weird. At first, he wanted everyone to be named the same thing. And he's a bit idealistic and entrepreneurial in the real estate sector. I find this a curious point of, story diversion from what we might have expected from what is or what is not canon from the previous game. It seems like Hudson's side quest from Breath of the Wild is not canon with this storyline. In other words, this Link that we woke up to did not meet Hudson, whether or not you, the player, completed that quest. So, the game does get a bit meta in that way, which can be fun to play with, actually. Because there are some things that carry over. Pellison was one of the first sons that we found in the previous side quest, and somehow Hudson found him still, so I think that's kind of a nice resolution to that story. Is they were still fated to meet, of course, with the last few letters being son. Look at this guy. He's kind of cheesy. It's all roped up. It's like not super profesh.
Oh. Oh. Yeah.
But you do beg the question, what would have happened if you'd introduced Hudson? Would Link and Zelda still descended to the depths and carried fate out the way it had been intended? We may never know.